office, I'm synchronizing to one receiver, and if I have the receiver with my laptop, which goes wherever I go, then it has to be resynchronized. But that's cool because you could have two separate wireless stations going, and they won't interfere with each other. Or you could synchronize into one of those stations. Well, is this all we're going to have today, or are there others going to show up?
We're giving it a bit of time right now.
Okay, I'm in no hurry, and I see my friend Dennis. I recognize the ceiling out there. Is that a? Let me look at. Oh yeah, that's your 420 clock. Okay, yeah, you're in the kitchen. Okay. Well, then that'll give me a minute just to make sure that my PowerPoint slide thing is working. It worked last night.
Ron, can you do me Ron, can you do me a favor? Okay.
Yes.
So when you hit share screen at the bottom, do you see that button?
Yep, I did. Nice bright green.
Okay. Do you have any audio associated with your PowerPoint at all?
No, I don't. But if I did, which I don't today, but if I did, what would I do with that?
Well, at when you hit that button, it brings up a button with the screens that you can share.
Right.
And then in the lower left-hand corner, there's a button that says share computer sound.
Oh, I've never noticed. I've done a lot of sharing in my Toastmasters Club meetings, but I've never noticed that little checkbox on the left, huh?
Yeah, that took me a while to get Dennis Vernakia.
Yeah.
To look at that button to push that, because every time he kept opening up his presentation and sharing it when we were trying to record it for the last meeting, like he just kept breezing past that little button.
Yep. Yeah, he and I go through all kinds of difficulties together because he set up an incredible remote station in Fallbrook, but there's always something that can go wrong. I wonder if I've got that picture of the back of the station. Yeah, I do. I've got that picture. I think that'd be good for a laugh here while we're waiting for a minute. Let me go get that. When you wire a station, the first time, all the cables are nice and orderly and they line up and they're all beautiful. And then a year from now, when you look back, I just moved the station out at where I operate in Concord at W7AYT about a month ago, and I couldn't make sense of anything. And I was getting all kinds of hum and all kinds of stuff, so the wires were probably all interacting. I've still got hum, but I've got much of it down, and the shock hazard has been reduced considerably.
All right, looks like we got Bruce.
Good.
Bruce, is that you?
Somebody came in on the phone, but there's no ID on it.
I have a phone number, but I don't see who that is. There's no name. Usually they have to identify themselves.
Ron, you're a bit backlit, which makes your image a bit fuzzy. Is there any way you can get rid of that backlighting?
It's actually, I think the camera itself kind of got fuzzed over. Everybody complains about that. I'm actually thinking of picking up a separate USB camera now that I'm doing a lot of these. Does this help at all?
Yes.
Okay.
It's better.
Okay. So maybe it's just background lighting is not enough, and that's the way it's always been. Here's that picture. I shouldn't have moved it. I should have copied it. Yeah, we'll do it again. me see if I can share this one picture. Oops, disabled. I've been disabled from sharing.
Oh, hold on. Let me.
The button was green here, but green just is a color, I guess. Green does not necessarily mean go.
Okay, give it a go now, Ron.
Okay. Yeah, there we are. Now let's see if I can find.
Bruce, are you able to hear us at all?
Let me try this again. There we go. This is the back of the station in NX6T in Fallbrook.
We don't see it yet, Ron.
Well, now when I click on share,
Oh, there we go.
there it is. And that was on a good day.
Oh, geez.
Oh my God.
Oh,
And we wonder why every contest weekend something new and different fails.
oh man.
It's actually gotten worse. This is an old picture, but it's actually gotten worse.
Yes.
But hey,
What is all that? Are you guys running like a network as well?
We're running three stations, three separate stations. Right on the shelf to the left is are the amplifiers. They used to be ACOM 2000As. Now they're expert linear 1.5s or something. And you're seeing those blue boxes on the bottom are the antenna switches. And it's all done, of course, automatic. So I can sit right here in my office or any place I got my laptop, and I can bring up a screen VNC viewer, which is basically a VPN that allows me to look at the entire computer screen of either station 1 or station 2, and I can run programs on it. And of course, we're all at the mercy of a pure internet connection. And some days on Morse code contests with a burbly internet, it clips the dits and the DAWs, and I have to ask for repeats a lot. With RTTY, the best contest to run remote is RTTY, because even if my audio gets clipped, it's still on the RTTY screen on the other end, and it's still waiting for me. So that's kind of a nice thing, a little side point to note about if you ever want to run remote. And there are remote stations all over the world, and for a fee you can now operate from the North Pole or Aruba or other rare places.
Wow.
All you need is an internet connection. We learned a lesson though. The logging programs have an auto repeat, so whatever key you press, like function key 1 to call CQ, it'll just keep looping until you hit the escape key to say you're done. But if you're remotely connected and you put that thing on auto loop and you lose your remote connection, you're not able to go press that escape key, and that thing will sit there calling CQ forever, and everybody will be calling you and wondering why you're ignoring them. What a complete ass. You're calling CQ and you won't even answer anybody.
Wow.
I fell asleep one night with 4 in the morning with the transmitter on auto repeat. I'm not exactly sure how many minutes it was, but I think the band was dead, thank goodness.
Yeah.
So I didn't piss too many people off. Let's get this out of here. All right.
There's Bruce's face.
369. Ah, yes. Didn't recognize the hat. I'm wearing my 2019 CQP t-shirt as a reminder that the first weekend in October is the California QSO party. I encourage everybody just to get on and make contacts if you want. But they're offering a special award this year. It's called the Sequoia Award. And if you work one-by-one call sign stations that spell out the word Sequoia, you get, you get a T-shirt or you get something like that. And so that's a new incentive. Back in 2015, they had the Gold Rush game where if you could work one-by-one station spelling out Gold Rush, you got a little medallion. I've got my medallion in the drawer here somewhere. I'm going to be running remote as part of Kilowatt 6 Alpha in Fallbrook. I just recently reserved Kilowatt 6 Charlie for Concord. I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to leverage that one yet, but at least I got the call sign. And you can run your own call, or you can set up, you can reserve a special call like I did for a few days. Activating counties is why we do it. And by the way, I just looked at the website last night. Alameda County for the CQP is on the endangered list. What that means is that for the first time, and I think forever, there are no operators slated to operate from Alameda County. Now, we've got 8 weeks or something like that, 6 weeks. But still, that would be a good incentive for everybody in this club to get on and make contacts. Okay, we've got 12 people today. Should we wait for more? I'm not hearing Bruce's voice. I see the mouse. There we
go. Bruce, are you able to hear anything at all?
Have a new message from City Tax Banking. Message is City Alert State ready for ACCT ending in 8128. So have a look at city.com/Bit-of-a-Billion.
say what?
Okay, all right.
Did anybody understand any of that?
Pieces. This weekend, if you're interested, is the Hawaiian QSO party. Lots of Hawaiian stations on already. And the International Lighthouse and Lightship weekend. So you can go looking for lighthouses. If you've seen the July issue or the August issue of QST magazine, they have a picture of a lighthouse. This issue right here, see if I can, there's a lighthouse. I posted this picture on my Facebook page and raised the question. I said, this lighthouse is somewhere in Oregon. Does anybody know where it is? And then I gave them a hint that in the write-up on it, they called this area the graveyard of the Pacific, to be specific. So this what you call it, lighthouse is in the graveyard of the Pacific. If you go to my website, WQ6Info, WQ6X.info/Whiskey6London, W6L, in 2012, I did a little de-expedition, if you will. I started in Vallejo, and I drove south, ending up in Santa Cruz, stopping at every lighthouse that I could find along the way, and made a few contacts with it. And they allowed me to register the call W6L. L stood for lighthouse. In fact, I can, let me see if I can type that in the chat.
From Jim or Rose or Charlie, is there any other, I know it's a little bit technically get glitchy this morning for some reason. Is there any other business for the regular general meeting?
Don't have any business.
Nothing? Okay. Rose?
Morning, Jim.
Material for this morning's presentation is taken from my contest blog. If you want some interesting reading, that is where a lot of this comes from.
Okay. Ron, I'm going to say go ahead and get started with your presentation. Around 10 o'clock, I'm going to pass over the meeting hosting duties to you. So when you end the meeting, it ends the meeting for everyone. I do have to take off around then. So,
Okay, well, that's actually perfect because let's see, that's about 40 minutes. That's what I'm projecting my time frame. And in Toastmasters, we're supposed to be on time with our speeches. So now that I know my time limits, now you've got to hold up a green card and a yellow card and a red card to let me know when I'm getting late.
okay.
That's what we do.
I just talked to Bruce. He's logged out and logging back in again to try to get his audio.
Okay, then we'll just wait an extra minute or so.
Okay. All right, I'm going to leave that meeting there because that's my video is probably chewing up a good amount of my bandwidth. And then Ron, per your request, we will this whole meeting is being recorded right now.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that.
And then we'll just post this publicly to ARCA's YouTube page.
So when you do that, if you could send me a link, I'd really appreciate it.
Of course, yes.
Because eventually I want to include it as part of my WQ6X YouTube area. There's if you want to see some videos they're WQ6X on YouTube. I did a lot of set the camera up in the shack in on St. Croix when I was running pileups a couple of days. So you got to watch me run pileups. That was kind of fun. And a number of little short videos have been made from the operations in Fallbrook. Although they're kind of old now because we don't get together very much in person. There's sometimes one person in the whole place. How weird is that? I'm often doing the night shift in Fallbrook, and I miss being there because in the middle of the night it's dead quiet. You hear a few birds up in the trees. We're up on top of a 900-foot hill. The air is clean, and sometimes I just leave the door open if it wasn't too windy and run radio at 3 in the morning. It's a wonderful experience, and I know most of you are sleeping. Sorry, but you're missing out, in my opinion. Then again, in contests on 40 meters, some of the nastiest hecklers come on about 1 o'clock in the morning. Go figure. I'm going to mention that this morning. As a side note, while we're waiting, the ARCA Club runs a net every Thursday night. You know, I've never actually shown up. I had to pick up an HT somewhere and join y'all. But when I'm in Concord, I frequently get on 75 meters in the early evening and check into some of the traffic nets. The Western Public Service System is a classic. The Golden Bear Net is a classic. And sometimes there's 3 nights a week, the Wharfinet, the Western Amateur Radio, Friends of Amateur Radio, or something like that net, the net that gets jammed in the beginning intentionally. There was a article in the ARRL newsletter a while back about W6WBJ. The FCC has ordered him shut down for like 15 years, but he's a lawyer. He's an idiot, but he's a lawyer, and he knows how to play the system. Well, he's basically about to run out of steam, and they at least want him to pay $15,000, and I forget. And there's a rumor out, and I think it's just a rumor, that if he keeps doing it, they're actually going to have him arrested. Hey, I'm going to jail. Can you believe it?
Bruce, if you're having trouble connecting your microphone, can you, in the lower left-hand corner where you see the microphone, click on the caret, and then you should see a big pop-up menu, and then if you have multiple microphones, or you can run a test speaker and microphone, that might help. Sorry, folks, just trying to troubleshoot for everyone here.
Well, that's what you have to do. See, you're actually the hub of this whole thing. We turn to the meeting originator. In my Toastmasters club, our incoming club president, she's the one that got us all zoomed up. And so we turn to her doubly as president and as making sure that every Zoom meeting actually makes it. We haven't had one die yet, so that's quite an improvement. I went so far as to buy my own account, just like this club has done, because it's a good business. Now I can work with some clients over the internet. A couple of people that couldn't see me because they're in Los Angeles. Well, now I can't do everything that I would do in this office, but I can do enough that we can at least get some things done. So the internet and the Zoom or other, I tried another Toastmasters club used another product, not Zoom. Forget what it was. It was an in-house product for a big company, and the thing was horrible. So we don't know what we've got here by having Zoom available to us. I'm going to try and screen share my opening page here to make sure that we're ready for this.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and get started, Ron?
Okay, well, I'm going to just start with the opening page. And I'm going to do an interesting experiment here. Now, can I get back? Yeah, the problem is I can't get there from here. Or maybe I can. Okay. Now I need to go back to Zoom, share the screen. Okay.
Oh, there it is.
Now, do you see it full screen, or do you see a white border with stuff down the side?
Oh, right now we're seeing your PowerPoint window.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, and that's an interesting problem, because and if I bring it up full screen here, then I can't. Yeah, bear with me 1 second as I work out this technical difficulty. Yeah, now it won't. Oh, I see. Now that's interesting. I see us on the side. My screen sharing is okay. I'm going to do a stop share just for a moment.
So you were full screen with the window, and there was an overlay that had some number of people. Their icons or faces were there.
Yeah.
So it looks like you're doing good.
Yeah, but as Zach said, you saw my my PowerPoint stuff. So the tricky part here is how to go full screen on it and still be able to access the share button on Zoom. Okay. So,
you can try.
okay, so I'm full screen. Then I'm going to hit the Windows key to take me over here to us. Okay, there we are. Now I'm going to go share screen. And how does that look?
There we go. Now we see the full presentation.
Yeah. Okay. And let me see if, yeah, there we go. So the wheel on the trackball will do it. Very good. I want to get rid of you guys. Well, actually, no. I can see me on the side, so that's a good thing. I can see where I should be. All right. Are we ready to go?
All right, go ahead, Ron.
Okay. This is a bit tricky because the PowerPoint screen is in my right field of vision, and I'm supposed to look directly at you. So we'll do the best we can. Okay, fellow ARCA Club members and guests. I'm going to start this off like a Toastmaster speech. This topic is really near and dear to me. You've heard me do a presentation on this before, so I'm going to include some of the highlights from before, but a lot of new things have happened since I did the presentation on the role of respect in radio sport was what I originally called it. I submitted the WQ6X.blogspot.com address so that you can go browse some of my previous blogs where most of this material actually came from. And there is a series of articles, Role of Respect in Radio Sport. There's also another series that I did that's under the moniker of 7 Reasons Why You Probably Should Not Call Me. Now that shocks people. I thought we wanted people to call us all the time. You know, yes and no. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But my first question today is, do you QRL? Everybody's going, huh? What do you mean, QRL? Do you know, who knows in here what I mean when I use the word QRL? I was afraid of that. Do you know what a Q code is? Let's start there. Let's back up a little bit. Does everybody know what a Q code is? Like QRM for interference, QRN for noise. You run QRP. Yeah, that's low power, or QRP power, 5 watts or less. QRO, high power. QRS, slow down, damn it. QRQ, I think, is speed up. Why would anybody want to speed up? Etc., etc. Well, there's one in the middle of that list. It's QRL. And in the context of radio operation, QRL question mark means, is the frequency busy? Is the frequency open? If this question were asked every time somebody starts on a new frequency, half of our QRM interference problems would go away. So I contend that everybody should QRL because it's the right thing to do, or the correct thing to do. And today is about ethics. Ethics in amateur radio. Doing the right thing at the right time in the right way for the right people to obtain the right results. Now, a few people don't like that word right because right has wrong. Well, you're wrong and blah, blah, blah. So if you prefer, let's put the word correct. Doing the correct thing at the correct time in the correct way for the correct people to obtain the correct results. When you run a net on Thursday night, this is exactly what you're doing. You're doing the correct thing. The net control is supposed to guarantee that we do the correct thing. You start the net at the correct time. You may do certain things in the net. The Western Public Service System, they start the net at, I believe it's 6:30 and at 7:30, or they started at 6 for casual operating, and at 7 they do an actual roll call. And they do that every night. I have a motto, when in doubt, cheat, but within the rules. And this is a tricky one. People think that cheating means that I advocate breaking the rules. No, my definition of cheating is doing something that no one ever thought of before. A long time ago, I wrote a blog on this, and you'll see a picture of an MV, what was it? An MV 10,000 computer. I used to work for Data General, and in our office we had an MV 10,000 computer, and I wrote a little goofy logging program. It let me know if I made dupe contacts and things like that, and I ran it on that MV 10,000, but I never told anybody about it, because we're talking back in the early 80s, and it really wasn't established as to whether or not computers were cheating or not. Today, if you don't use a computer in a radio contest, you don't stand a chance of winning. Hand logging is out. Now, here's another question. Whoops. Here's another question. Do you know what the national tune-up frequency is? You ever heard of it? Everybody's looking at me kind of blank. Did you know that every band, at least every band that I'm on, has a national tune-up frequency? It's on every band, from 160 to 2 meters and beyond. Well, the national tune-up frequency is whatever frequency I happen to be running in the middle of a radio contest. It's really weird. I'll listen for a few minutes while I get everything set up. Frequency's clear, no problem. I call CQ contest and immediately 3 carriers show up. Give me a break. So I often make a joke if I'm running a contest in sideband and people are tuning up on me. I say, this is the national tune-up frequency. Please do us all a favor and key your amplifier down at 1,000 watts for 10 minutes continuously. I'll wait for you to burn your amplifier out. Thank you. Now, some of these amplifier manufacturers boast that, you know, they have the brick on top of the Morse code key, and they say we can key our amplifier down for an hour, full duty, and it'll still be alive.
Testing, testing, testing.
Oh, we got testing. You are heard, Mr. Bruce.
Got it. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. Thank you. Now we know that you're here. I see the brim of your hat, but I can't see your eyes very well. So
They're blue.
All right. Here's another problem that people encounter. Have you ever said, but the band is dead? Have you ever tuned around, you know, and 10 meters is famous for this. We're at the bottom of the sunspot cycle, but that doesn't mean that 10 meters is no good. One night, scurrying around, I pointed the Yagi. We have a 10-meter Yagi in Concord, and I pointed it northeast and put out a couple of CQ calls. I looked on the reverse beacon network screen, and I had been heard in British Columbia, Colorado, and a few places. And then within about 5 minutes, I got 2 calls from stations in Colorado at 9:30 at night. Now, I expect that on 10 meters at the top of the sunspot cycle, but not at the bottom. So if everybody's listening, but nobody's transmitting, we're going to think the band is dead. That's why calling CQ is so important. There's an art to calling CQ. CQ means, you know, basically talk to anybody. Or CQ contest. I'm going to be calling CQ Hawaii this weekend to see if I can attract some Hawaiians that are tuning the band instead of calling CQ like they should. But let's back up. These are typical ways to communicate. I started out as a shortwave listener. All I did was listen for about 2 years. one of my blog entries has a picture of the Hammerlin Super Pro SP-210. Was made in 1939, and I had it in my bedroom as a kid. It was on loan for a while. Back in the Soviet Union days, before you could get an amateur license, you had to be a registered shortwave listener for, I think, 1 or 2 years. And then you couldn't, all they would give you was an operator license. You could not set up your own home station. That's why club stations in Europe were way outnumbering those in the United States. We had home stations. They had no home stations. Once you're done listening, you might want to chat with people, rag chewing. In a way, that's why we're all in this hobby, to rag chew in some formal way. But you might get the DX hook, as I did very early on. That, by the way, is what persuaded me to upgrade my license. Novices, we could work DX, but it would be a fluke. Having a general license at least got me so I could use sideband and I could work the majority. But then I found out the harsh truth that on CW, the best, juiciest DX was always below 0.25 on the amateur bands. It still is. So that's a reason to have an extra class license if you're a CW operator. Traffic handling is, of course, one of the main reasons we do it. We have a relationship with CERT. You run a network every Thursday night. This practice. Most people don't know, but the national traffic system is still alive and well in the ARRL. I'll tune around the high end of 80 meters some nights, and I'll hear NCN, the Northern California net on CW, or PAN, the Pacific Area net, or the RN6, Regional Net 6. They're still sending messages back and forth the old way. I'll have something more to say about that. And then, of course, you know, one of my favorites in radio is Radiosport contesting. Calling CQ is how it all starts. If everybody sits there and listens, we'll be staring at each other waiting for something to happen. Somebody's got to call CQ first. So if I want to rag chew, if I want to chat with somebody, I call CQ or I look around. In Concord, I have discovered that there is another amateur station there's actually two, one on the block in front of me and one on the block behind me. I haven't met either of them for an eyeball QSO yet. I think that's coming up, but they're so loud that I couldn't miss them, so I just decided to call in one night. You could make a schedule. Some people make schedules with friends over in Europe, for example, and they get on every Thursday night and they pick a frequency. So let's say that you choose the frequency 14028. What's the first thing you do when you get on that frequency? You both have agreed to meet at 7 o'clock. It's now 7 o'clock. What's the first thing you do? You send QRL ? Is the frequency in use? Because if there's somebody already there, you can't just say, well, we're supposed to meet at 7 o'clock and there's somebody using it. They're going to have to go. No. Your real agreement is, I'll meet you on 14.028 or thereabouts. That's why we have a tuning knob on the radio so you can tune around and find me. As a parenthesis, back in the novice days when we weren't allowed to use a VFO, we used crystals. And I might have a crystal for 7.15 or 7.5 7.159, and I would call CQ and I would tune around, and somebody else would have a crystal for 7.175. So I would tune and find him, and we'd be on different frequencies holding a QSO because we were not allowed to use VFOs. It's an interesting thing. We don't know how easy we have it today. Now for DXing, tune the band. You'll hear calls you never heard before. Look for internet spots. There's all kinds of the internet spotting networks. And if you're running contest logging software or Ham Radio Deluxe, they have access to internet spots. You can call CQDX. Sometimes just calling CQDX will get people to call you. Now, if you happen to be at a location that's desirable, like Whiskey Papa 2 in St. Croix, when I was there 6 years ago, all I had to do was call CQ, not CQDX, and I would be flooded with people for an hour. Our purpose is to get the message through. Now, we have a call sign that does that, K6QLF. Does anybody know what QLF stands for? You old time, yeah, Bruce, would you tell us what QLF stands for?
I used to know.
I just found out the other day, and it kind of cracked me up. So I thought, how cool that we've got the call sign. QLF is actually a derogatory term. You know, we call an operator a lid, L-I-D, a poor operator. QLF means that the guy's keying is so horrible, he must be sending it with his left foot. Q left foot. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I read recently in a Ham publication, and I'm going to...
Ron?
Yes.
I've actually got a cartoon of that. That was sort of an early logo to K6QLF back 10, 20 years ago.
Okay, so great. So I wasn't misled. Well, I think it's a great call sign, and I had a ball using it for field day. Okay. So a couple of details on traffic handling. You already know about this. Always, you know, show up at a given frequency on a given time. Now, for Radiosport, I've written a couple of blogs comparing Toastmasters speech contests to Radiosport. And I coached some Toastmasters at the beginning of the year. I said, what's the first thing you do to get ready for a speech contest? And I got a dozen different answers, all wrong. I said, the first thing you do is read the rules. Because if you're going to cheat, but within the rules, you got to know what the rules are that you can cheat within. You might be tuning the band and you wonder what's going on. Well, listen for a while and you might say, oh, it sounds like a QSO party. Oh, it sounds like Ohio. Gee, I ought to go to find out what the rules of the Ohio party is. The WA7 B&M contest calendar I'm going to show you at the end of this talk is a way to find out what's going on. Or if you're hearing a guy run a QSO party, like a guy in Ohio, WA6XYZ, ask him, I'd like to make a contact in your QSO party. Can you tell me how to do it? And because he wants that contact so bad, he'll take 5 minutes to help you out, to give him 1 point, and to do the right thing for the right person at the right time in the right way. I contend Radiosport is emergency preparedness. So anybody that bitches, yeah, well, you radio contesters, you don't let me do what I want to do because you're all over the band. Well, what is it that you want to do? Well, I don't know, but whatever it is, you're not letting me do it. I never understood that argument. Here's the contest calendar. If you want to know what other contests are going on, QST Magazine and CQ have a, QST is the contest corral and CQ is the contest something or other. If you're on the ARRL mailing list, you can get the contest email every 2 weeks. Of course, each event has specific web pages. And Facebook has a number of groups. My favorite contest is the November sweepstakes. Because November sweepstakes originated out of traffic handling. Most contests will give out 599 in a number. Boring. Here, in the sweepstakes, you have to give out a call sign, a QSO number, a power level, a check, meaning what year you were first licensed, and a section, what ARRL section you are in. Well, if you think about it, what you're really doing is you're sending the information you would send in a radiogram. If you see the radiogram on the left, right underneath the black box is are boxes that the operator fills in. And one of the boxes is radiogram number or QSO number. The check in a radiogram is normally the number of words in the radiogram. Well, we turned it into the year first licensed and so on. So I do believe Radiosport, especially sweepstakes, is very much emergency preparedness. The sweepstakes first ran in 1934. We now have 83 sections. If you can work all 83 sections, you get a clean sweep. In the olden days, the hardest sections were Northwest Territories and Rhode Island and Delaware. Now, almost the most difficult section to get is Nebraska. Dennis N6KI said, there are no radio hams in Nebraska, only pigs and pig farmers. Now, if you're from Nebraska, don't take that personal. A friend of mine is. In Europe, they have a contest called Worked All Europe, WAE. I just did the CW part a couple of weeks ago. In Worked All Europe, you send 59 and a QSO number, but that's to get 1 point. If you want to get 2 points, you have to make contact with the European, and you have to send him what's called a QTC message. A QTC message is a piece of traffic describing a piece of traffic you just sent. So in a QTC message, I'll send to a European, a contact I made was at this time with this station, and he sent me this number. And if I can send a booklet of 10 QTCs, I get 10 more points. So in fact, just making contacts in the Worked All Europe contest is only half the score. The real big scores come from sending messages about messages. You all know Field Day. We had to do it a little bit different this year, but technically it was first run in 1928. People's first exposure to radio is Field Day, so I really recommend be open to the public, be friendly, put people behind the keyboard. In Toastmasters, we pull people up to do table topics, their first visit, if they're up for it. In ham radio, when I was up on the mountain, W6SW, we'd put people from the campsite, sit them down for 20 minutes, especially if you're a woman, because if you're a woman, you have a voice that will attract other people and we make more contacts. There's some contest logging software that'll help you run things. N1MM is free and is what I run. I also have a license for WinTest, and there are other products out there. Eventually, you want to create a Cabrillo file, and that's what you submit to the contest organizers.
Ron, can I interrupt real quick?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just about to take off, so I'm going to hand over hosting duties to you. I'm just doing this to check to make sure that the cloud recording keeps going on my end.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, and it's still recording. Okay.
Okay.
Or it's recording. So when you close up, it'll save to our cloud account, and then I will make sure you get that eventually. Okay.
Okay. So when I close up, so I don't have to do anything. I just sit here and you leave, and I'm okay.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Thanks,
All right.
Zach.
Take care, guys.
Thank you for getting us started. Very appreciative.
Thanks, Zach.
All right.
Thanks, Zach.
Okay. Well,
Thank you, Zach.
what do you do after a contest? The 3830scores.com website is where you post your scores. people often ask, well, why did they call it 3830scores.com? Because back in the olden days, after a major contest like sweepstakes or field day, we would congregate on 3830, at least on the West Coast, and talk about what happened. Out of that, I'm not exactly sure when, but the 3830 Scores website was done. I post every contest there. I have currently 83 contest gigs that I've run this year so far. I'm trying to beat my record of 109. Maybe I'll make it. And you can look up other people's call signs to see what they've been up to for better or for worse. Contest categories, single op. Multi-single means you have a bunch of operators and you're putting one signal on the air. Multi-single doesn't mean you have one transmitter. It means you only have one signal on the air at a time. Multi-2 means you only have two signals on the air at a time. In these setups, like what we have in Fallbrook, you can actually have a third station who's allowed to make multiplier contacts, and it won't count as a transmitter. It's a weird rule. And then we have multi-multi. The big contest stations like Kilowatt 9 Charlie Tango and the guy over here in Oakley, N6RO, they have massive stations, one on each band, and they're often going simultaneously. Club stations are good. Clubs should get on the air for California QSO Party and the November sweepstakes, as well as Field Day. Some contests give novices or first-time rookie operators in contests special classifications and awards. Here's some things to help you out. I'm going to talk about the beacons in a moment. There's a thing called the Reverse Beacon Network. You can look it up. It isn't just for contesting. If you want to know if you're being heard, call a CQ on CW or digital. Doesn't work on voice, not yet anyway. And put a CQ out for a couple of minutes and go to the Reverse Beacon Network and type in your call sign, and you'll see a list of what skimmers are hearing you and how loud you were. Very useful. Preparing for a contest, I read the rules. I look at the results from previous years and what I wrote about it. I talk to people about it. Dennis N6KI and I have had many a conversation about contests. I monitor the space weather because you need to know what you can expect going into a contest weekend. Devising a band plan, which bands are you going to be on at a given hour. I even publish my band plan for things like California QSO Party and sweepstakes. I publish it on my Facebook page so people can know where to look for me, and they can't accuse me of spotting myself. You're not allowed to spot yourself on the internet, but I am allowed to tell you more or less where I might be if you come looking for me. Afterwards, I write up contests, I file my scores, and of course, make sure your QRZ.com entry is up to date. I want to know sometimes a guy in a contest, I want to know where he is, and I go look him up, and the information is poor. I'd really love to see what his station is. Put a picture in there. Some of us like pretty pictures. And this is going to take us to a beef I have. One of my favorite networks is the NCDXF beacons. If you don't know about this beacon network, you should. And if you have a couple of bucks to spare, they have a donation fund that would be really helpful. About 25, 30 years ago, they proposed a beacon network that we currently have today. It's on 20 meters through 10 meters. If you look at the bottom right of the screen, you can see the different frequencies that are on. And these beacons transmit 24 hours a day. They send their call sign, and I believe it's 18 or 22 words a minute Morse code. You don't even have to copy code to know which station it is, because you can track which station is transmitting at any given moment in time. You can see the map that I that I put on the screen. I wrote a software app to track this. MFJ sells a box that tracks the clock at WWV and turn on the various lights, telling you which beacon is transmitting at a time. And you can, if you go to that frequency and you can hear that beacon, then theoretically the band is open to that part of the world. My software also has a space weather box on the bottom of it, and this was back in the April of 2017. We had an 82 solar flux, but we had an A index of 30, so you'll notice on the right that the conditions were poor all over the place. On 10 meters, there's a set of beacons between 28.2 and 20. It should have been 28.3. That's a typo on my part. But most people don't know about beacons on 40 meters CW band, 7.039. And I've written a couple of blogs about the mysterious Russian military beacons. They are on way more frequencies than this, but this is where I found out about them. And all they are is a transmitter that just sends the same letter over and over again. This morning, I pointed the antennas in Fallbrook to 270 degrees west from Fallbrook, and I heard the F beacon, Vladivostok, the K beacon, that name that I can't pronounce, Kamchatka, Russia, and M, the Matagan, Russia. So that told me that the band was definitely open to Asia and Eastern Russia. And here is where those beacons actually live. You can see the M beacon, Magadan, north, the K beacon to the east, and it's hard to see that as an F, but it's an F beacon. If I can hear the F beacon, that tells me that I'm most likely going to be able to hear China. If I can hear the K beacon, Japan is usually open. And if I can hear the M beacon, then Eastern Russia and sometimes Tibet and things like that are more likely. So I rely on these beacons. Now, a lot of people say, well, that's not fair. That's cheating. You're using the beacons. The contest rules don't say I can't. So go ahead, folks. Now, before we go there, here's a beef I have. Radio teletype operators. Down on the bottom right, notice that there is a beacon at 14.100. In every major RIDI contest that I've listened to, 14.100 is obliterated with RIDI stations calling CQ contest. That is not okay. One of the reasons people don't like contesters is because they think we're too brash, we don't listen before we transmit, which is sometimes true, and in this case, we QRM the beacons. I give 5 KC on either side. Now, a lot of people say, well, give it a KC. Okay, great. But don't be 0 beat on 14.100 and be calling CQ. That's just not cool. I do the same thing on 7.039. You won't see me operate anywhere near 7.039. And you all know that W1AW has a schedule. They send bulletins every day. Well, one of those bulletins, bulletin frequencies, happens to be on 047.5 up from the band edge. So on 40 meters, 7047.5. Now, we all know when W1AW is going to be on the air. So can we not give them a 1.5 KC leeway so that they can send their bulletins, send their code practice? I relied on W1AW for code practice. That's how I got my extra class license. It was a bummer when I tried to copy code practice and there was all kinds of other crap on the band. In the phone bulletins, they're usually up near the top of the band, 290 and 390. in the top of the band. Give them some room as well. Now, space weather. Deal with it is the bottom line. We all know of the 11-year sunspot cycle, but did you know that the sunspot cycle is actually 22 years? Yep, it really is. Because every 11 years, the sun, more or less 11 years, the sun reverses its magnetic polarity. So in fact, it takes 22 years to get back to where you started from, and that is why it's actually a 22-year cycle, which is basically two 11-year cycles. We have been in the longest lull that I can think of. Notice this solar flux index was April of 2017, and we were down to 66. And we've been doing this stuff for 3.5 years. We're just now coming out of it. I believe the last solar flux I looked at was 72. Oh, wow. We're looking, the higher those numbers go, the better the bands are on the upper bands. Right now, as you know, 10 meters is all but a graveyard. 15 meters isn't much better, but if you call CQ, you might find out that it's not as dead as you thought. A year ago in Concord, I pointed the Yagis southeast to South America. The band was dead, nobody. I called CQ, and within 5 minutes, I had 5 South American stations working me. If you know 10 meters, you know that there is a little duct that goes, it kind of curves for us because we're on the West Coast. The people in the Central and East Coast, they literally have a north-south duct on 10 meters and 6 meters to South America. Once in a while, we on the West Coast can take advantage of that. Now, I gave a presentation for this club about 1.5 years ago on my beefs in Radiosport, and I've added some since then. So, no talk of ethics would be complete without a review of a couple of them, because not only are they not antiquated, they seem to be happening more and more. It's almost as if people read my blog's entries and decided, well, I'll fix him. This is one of my classics. Now, on a net, you're allowed to say, we're busy, get out of here. But when I'm running a contest frequency, it's basically a shared resource. When I want to go run a frequency, I find the frequency, I listen for a minute or two. I might say, QRZ, the frequency, is the frequency in use. That's a fancy way of saying QRL on sideband. On CW, we're ready. I'll type in QRL question mark. If I get no response, then I'll transmit. So I'll start running a frequency, and out of nowhere, some dingle dork comes in right on top of me and starts calling CQ. Really? If you were listening, you would know that I was already there. Now I have to go and chase them off, because I was there first. There's a gentlemanly and gentlewomanly rule of whoever gets the frequency first gets it. And I've heard people say, well, man, in contests, there aren't no free frequencies. That's not fair to me. Too bad. You should have gotten up earlier. Or, instead of calling CQ, why don't you go search and pounce and make contacts with all the CQers? Eventually, they'll run out of people to work, and now they'll give up a frequency, and you can call CQ, and they'll go find you. Search and pounce is a way to make contacts. I tune the band or use the internet and pounce on you. The other way is to call CQ. Here's a classic. A station works me on my run frequency because he wants the 2 points for his log. And then after he's got his guaranteed 2 points, he starts calling CQ right on top of me. Huh? Really? That's as bad as the first guy. Or we get this clown. The guy works me and gets the 2 points. And then he moves up frequency from me, but still within my passband to call CQ. He's running a narrow filter, so he can't hear me, and he assumes that I can't hear him. Well, my filter is a little bit wider on purpose. It's not okay. Give people some room. That's part of why this thing works. Now, you may remember I opened my presentation on ethics with this picture. One night, while running the Japanese International DX contest, actually it was a CW contest, I was running a frequency, Japanese stations are coming in right and left, and then out of nowhere, I heard a howling. And then on audio CW, sending CQWPX and then DEYC9WSQ. The guy wouldn't go away. He did this for like an hour. Well, I looked up YC9WSQ, and this was the picture I found on QRZ.com. Now, if you go to QRZ.com and look this guy up, there's no picture anymore. I'm really glad I got a picture of the screen before he took it down. I haven't decided yet which guy is the radio operator, the witch doctor on the left or the guy with the bag, the fishing bag on the right. I'm not quite sure. Here's another beef I have. I don't like running slow CW in a contest, but 35 words a minute in a contest is obscene. Europeans with these weird call signs like S55S. You know how many dits are in S55S? Try to copy did-it-it. Copy that at 35 words a minute. I can't make the 5s out from the S's. So I have to listen for almost 5 minutes to get the call sign. And the guy's wondering why nobody's calling him. He's calling CQ contests, sending S55SS, 35 words a minute. None of us can understand them. I had to finally one night send QRS, which is slow down, idiot, slow down. And when he slowed down, you know what? 10 people called him right away. I run a contest at about 24 words a minute. But once in a while, I'll have an operator call me, and he's about 18 words a minute. You know what I do? I dial it down to 18 words a minute. If the guy still can't get it, I'll slow it down even more, make the contact, because I want the 2 points, and then I'll speed it right back up to 24. Is that so difficult? People say, well, by going faster, I make more contacts per minute. Not true. If we have to ask you to repeat yourself 5 times, you've just wasted 5 contacts worth of time repeating yourself to get 1 contact. Am I missing something here, or I don't know. But it's still one of my beefs, because the proper ethics is run at a respectable speed so that we can all understand you. Here's a beef I have. I was in a QSO party once and making contacts on CW. The guy's running a frequency. Somebody calls in. He makes a contact with him, and he says to the guy, can you work single sideband? And the guy says yes. And he said, meet me on 14.2.210, blah, blah, blah. So he abandons us. He's got form on us to go make his sideband contact, and then we're not sure when he's going to come back. So do I sit around and wait for him, or I don't know what to do. So I came up with a solution for these idiots. The minute he leaves, I send QRL question mark. It's the frequency in use, and I'll send it 3 times. And if I get no response, I then say, okay, frequency's not in use. I checked, and I'll call CQ on the contest, or I'll call CQ in some way. Now, if he comes back and starts calling CQ automatically, then he did not listen before he transmits, and I'll send to him another message, QRL QSY. QRL means the frequency's in use, QSY means move. It's the guys that run SO2R, single op 2 radios. They're calling CQ on one band and working stations on another band. If I know they're doing it, I'll do the exact same thing. I'll send QRL on the band I'm on, and now they have to stop and respond to me and say, yeah, frequency's busy. And then I'll wait for them to actually send something. And if they don't send anything, I'll send QRL again. And we go back and forth. I don't mind if you run 2 radios and run 2 frequencies at once, but not at the expense of us on any one frequency. If you can't keep 2 frequencies going 100% flawlessly, then in my opinion, you shouldn't be doing it. Ah, yes. And now SSB mayhem. I told you earlier that the biggest QRM, intentional QRM I get in radio contests is on 40 meters after about 1 o'clock in the morning. An interesting thing, sometimes in a non-contest or a non-sideband contest weekend, I'll tune around the sideband portion of the band at 1 to 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'll hear various people having rag chews, and it's all good and blah, blah, blah. But nowhere do I hear any RTTY stations. As you know, RTTY is not supposed to come up above 77.125. Now, in the middle of a single sideband contest, above 7.125, I'll hear a dozen RTTY stations. Huh? And they're all on top of people. I think it's people sending bogus RTTY to mess with the sideband contesters. I can't prove that. I should figure out a way to turn another receiver on with a decoder to decode what it is they're sending. But I notice it doesn't happen in non-sideband contest weekends. It happens only in sideband contest weekends, from which I conclude it's intentional. The best intentional one that I heard of was one night in the middle of a contest. Dennis in 6KI rousted me out of bed at 2 a.m. as he always did. And he said, it's all yours. He said, I've got a nice frequency, but you need to know that there's a heckler who's been heckling me for the last hour, and he's probably going to heckle you too. At about 2:20, I get on the air, call CQ contest, and immediately, F you! F you! F you! And that recording, I recognized it. I've heard that recording before. That recording, if you tune to 3840 at night, you'll hear a bunch of idiots. I call it the 3840 garbage dump frequency. And they're doing all kinds of crazy crap. And the first time I ever heard the FU was on 3840. So now I know 3840 is dead at 2 o'clock in the morning. So somebody got bored. They found us on 40-meter sideband and decided to play with us. I had to memo 2 frequencies and jump around between the 2 frequencies. He eventually got bored with all that and put on his jammies and went to bed before Mommy and Daddy turned his radio off. But you know what? When it's all said and done, what we do is really quite easy. Now, I'd like to open it up for a couple of minutes for any questions, and I'm going to exit screen sharing mode for right now, and I'll answer any questions, and then we'll take it from there. Let's see, escape. There we go. And the sharing window is closed. I see Jim, but I don't. Oh, I'm not having I don't have audio here. Hold on a second. My wireless headphones, if it doesn't get any audio for 10 minutes, it shuts itself off. And because I've been talking and not listening,
Morning, Ron.
Hold on, there
Howard.
we go. Okay, now I can hear everybody.
No one's asking any questions.
Yes.
Hi, Howard.
And who has a question?
I got a question for you, Ron.
Okay, try me.
And I don't, I know you've been around on the radio for a long time, but early on in your hamming, did you immediately get into contesting?
Actually, I didn't. I used to play around in sweepstakes because that just was cool. And I never could do very well. And we used to hand log. You saw a picture of the log sheet that we used. Imagine, what is that thing, hold 30 contacts, I think? So imagine if you made 300 contacts, you've got 10 pages, and you've got to hand check them. We had a dupe sheet because you had to use a shorthand on the call sign and enter it in the dupe sheet to know that if you've worked the station before. One field day on 10 meters, we were making so many contacts. We had 4 people duping our contacts after we made them. So we didn't know if they were dupes or not. And then when they found a dupe, they'd line it out in the log. Today, of course, we have the computer software. But in those days, it's just submitting a log entry was too complicated. And I was never going to win anyway. So I said, why submit a log? And then I found out that a guy, WA6DIL, good old Dave, he sent me a higher QSO number than he really was. So I thought he was going to win for East Bay, and I didn't send my log. When I saw the scores that came out a year later, his number was half of what I had. I had a higher score than him, and if I had just sent in a log, I might have won something. So what that means is, always send in a log. For the QSO parties, I send in a log. I have several awards from the Hawaiian QSO party for 2 and 3 QSOs. Hey, why not? I got a 7QP, 7th area QSO party. I got the single up outside of the 7th area plaque, meaning I was the top guy. I couldn't believe it, and I didn't hardly do anything, but nobody else sent in a log bigger than me, and I know people made the contacts. It wasn't until 2000, when my call sign had now become QX6H, that I started getting interested in contests. I told you about the use of the computer, the MV10,000. That was the All Asian DX contest one summer. The All Asian CW is in June. The All Asian sideband is coming up in a couple of weeks in September. If you want to put Asia in your log on sideband, go to the calendar and get the rules. In the All Asian contest, you send 59 on your age. You ladies send 00 because you're not supposed to tell us your age. So and unfortunately, the average age being sent, especially from the Japanese, is about 62 to 85. We need to do something about that. But in 2000, prior to that, I started doing CQP from Ojai. And that kind of got to be fun. And then in 2000, W6SW and W6KC brought me along on a team effort to put Mono County, Mammoth Lakes, the mountain, Mammoth Mountain, on the calendar and on the radio. And 2000 to 2004, I joined up with that group. And from that point on, I just decided to go solo. I met Dennis in 6KI in 2009. He got me hooked on guest operating, and I haven't looked back. And so now, every weekend, I go to the contest calendar to see what's on the calendar, and I get on. I want people to play in the California QSO party, so least I can do is go look for Ohio stations this weekend and Hawaii stations this weekend. And it kind of works both ways. So now I'm really rabid about it, but in the beginning, I could take it or leave it, except for field day. Field day is still something I do for a lot of fun. That's my random speak on that.
Ron, I got a question. In contesting, I know if we're ordinary operating, you need to be within 1,000 feet of your QTH to sort of use your default call sign. But for people who are antenna limited, for contesting, are there rules about how far away you can be from your ordinary?
Well, you see, that's an interesting point, because that's one of the reasons, of course, many of us are now running remote, because we live in HOA restricted areas and all kinds of stuff. When, if you go back to the early posts in my WQ6X.blogspot, you'll see that I did a lot of operating with N6 George Echo Oscar, N6 GEO in Brentwood, and he lived in a homeowner restricted area. So his way around that was on for contest weekends, he had a 6BTV vertical. He had the mounting base for it pre-mounted. He had the radials run under his lawn. You know that old trick. You can run your radials, get a half spade, and run your radial wires in the dirt, and then cover them over, and in about a month, your grass will grow over the top, and nobody sees your radials. So he had the vertical base, and then for a contest weekend, he had his 6BTV all assembled. He'd pop it on the base, run the contest that weekend, and by 4 or 5 o'clock on Sunday, he'd take it down, and nobody ever complained. Well, now we wanted to start running 2 and 3 element Yagis. The same thing. He got a triangular military mast. We set it up at about 3:30 in the afternoon on Friday, and we'll crank that thing up, and you get about 25 feet out of it. And we managed to take a few awards to do that. There are other ways you can run dipoles along the eaves of your house. Some people have done that. Right now, because of the being outdoor restrictions, they've kind of changed the rules on that. Now, a multi-station may be defined as several single operator stations within an area, and they can submit a score, but you really either have to keep each station on a single band or be able to network your logs together so that you don't start making duplicate contacts. When we run in Fallbrook, we have all 3 computers tied into a network. So when a contact is made on station 1, station 2, and station 3 immediately know about it, and it's in our logs as well. So there's a number of ways to solve that. Be creative, definitely. Remember the article published a couple of years ago on the indoor antenna idea. That's not the greatest, but if it can get you on the radio, why not? Put up a flagpole. You know, flagpoles are covered by federal law, if I recall. So get a flagpole and put radials, bury the radials in the lawn, and make sure you raise and lower your flag every day to show that you're patriotic.
Any other questions?
I know a guy that did that. He had 4 flagpoles, U.S. flag, a state flag, and I can't remember the other 2 flags. And from that, he made what's called a 4-square. A 4-square antenna is 4 verticals that are phased together, and you can point the signal electrically by shifting the phasing. So this guy, people said, wow, you're really patriotic. You love Canada, and you love the U.S., and you love your state. And maybe the 4th was an ARRL flag or something. I don't know. So that's another way around it. When in doubt, cheat, but within the rules.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Since we got this many people just sitting here, I got the thought this morning that, over the years, Marianne and I have watched so many reruns of MASH. And I was thinking, that Dennis's presentation a couple of weeks ago, the club would like to rerun our little MASH video, even though everybody's got a copy of it. If you'd find that fun to run again. I really enjoyed it, and everybody else has. Howard's got a copy of it. We all have a copy of it. But
well, let me make a point about that. I think it's a great idea, and that would give us an opportunity to bring guests to come view it that haven't seen it before.
For those of you still with us, that sound agreeable to you to have a rerun MASH?
Sure.
Well, let me
Absolutely,
give you
yeah.
another option too. Up here in October, we're going to have Dennis do the presentation, so you can tune into our club meeting in October, which is the first Wednesday of the month. They're at, I believe it's at 7 o'clock. And
well, definitely pass us info.
I'll send you down the info. But he said he'll do it, and he's going to do it live. And so at first I thought I would just use your recording, but in talking to him, he said no, he's going to cut it down, see if he can cut the time down a bit. So he's doing a version of it to try to get it closer to 60 minutes.
Well, so in a way, he's using us to refine this, because I wouldn't be surprised whenever they allow us to start attending ham conventions again. I wouldn't be surprised that he'll be quite an attraction there.
Yes, absolutely. Anyhow, he's great. I enjoyed talking to him and arranging it for our club in October.
He's a dedicated ham. He has elmered several young people through contesting. K6JO, who used to be KK6NON, is now taking first place single op awards in contests. He's about 19 or 20. He's been going down to ZF1 Alpha in the Cayman Islands, putting the Cayman Islands on. Another amateur, Dennis is turning into a sideband contester and CW contester, and we got a 14-year-old who's up and coming. And Dennis has been real patient with him and bringing him along. Dennis is a good guy to have on your team, whatever that team is.
Another thing that I wanted to mention, which sort of goes hand in hand with what you were saying, Ron, is that there's a flagpole vertical by Gray Line Antennas. That's an off-center fed vertical, and it requires no radials. Gray Line Antennas, or Gray Line Performance Antennas.
Yeah. Oh, great. I'll have to look that up. Now, can you run a flagpole or a flag up that thing?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No, they provide it with everything. It's not an inexpensive option because you have to have a remote tuner at the base of the antenna, and that's going to kick up the cost. And,
so they don't provide you the tuner. You still have to have the $500 tuner to go along with it.
No, they will supply you the tuner. So the
wow.
of the antenna that they're quoting, they'll provide the tuner depending upon how much power you're going to be running. The inexpensive one is around 200 watts, and they go all the way up, 600 watts, etc.
Wow.
In fact, I've arranged for him to also give it the gentleman. I can't think of his name of his call sign right now. Anyhow, the great matter here is not functioning this morning. But he's going to give a presentation up here in Santa Rosa as well.
If you can give us a link to that, that would be great. It'd be nice that we could bring clubs together a little bit too. Well,
that would be nice. In fact, it's nice that you could go and find people who are doing various things. Another one that I've arranged, I jumped in up here in Santa Rosa and got on their board. And they said, "Oh, here, what do you take the function of program manager?" I went, "Wow!" But I've been able to do that, and it's worked out well. And so the other one is finding and killing interference in your home. So if you have interference from lights and how to do that, and I've got the list somewhere of his call too, but they're all local in the Bay Area. So
getting the interference is a tough one. I use powered speakers in Concord, and something puts a weird noise in it, and it's only in the speakers, not in the headphones, and I still don't know how to get rid of it.
Anyhow, I'll send you the information on what
Yeah, maybe he can help us.
Hey, Howard, you're going to keep talking. It's going to cost you $20.
Am I paid up for this year?
No.
Okay. I'll send you the money for this year and for next year.
Hey, what is it? A non-residential fee of some sort? I think bottle of scotch or something. So another thing that Ron brought up tonight about the QLF, the left foot, we have the rights of a clip art for QLF. One of the founders of ARCA back in 20 years ago had a son who was an artist, and he drew an artwork piece for us of a left foot doing a little ham thing. So Ron might think of ways that that could be used by the club, that we do have permission to use, and somehow add it to your portfolio.
Yeah, if somebody can send me a copy of that JPEG, you know, it'd be cool to do a little write-up on the club in my contest blog, and that would be probably the opening picture.
Okay, we can work that out if I can find it.
Okay, great.
If not, just a pencil and paper and go for it.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, talking about sharing information, Ron, I was wondering if maybe I could have you do this presentation for Santa Rosa.
I would be happy to do that, sure.
Or a version of it.
Yeah, I can do the original. Were you at my presentation, The Role of Respect in Radiosport, where I...
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, that's actually where some of this material came from. That what I could do is basically repeat The Role of Respect in Radiosport. It's 25 slides with the beef slides that I showed today were right out of that presentation. So that's the kind of pictures that I would be showing, and I have some funny stories to tell about some weird stuff in Radiosport that I think people would appreciate.
That's terrific. What are your plans for the California QSO in October?
For me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will be remote operating a few hours at Kilowatt 6 Alpha. That's November X-Ray 6 Tango's station in Fallbrook. N6KI puts that together. I have reserved the call sign Kilowatt 6 Charlie. Charlie can either mean Concord or it can mean Contra Costa, something like that. So I haven't decided if I'm going to do a multi-op or a single op on that yet. But either way, that'll be from Contra Costa County in some way. And I encourage club members to go to cqp.org, read the rules, and get on and make some contacts from Alameda. And if you know you're going to do it, register your county on the website. There's a button you can click on that says, so that you can let the contest promoters know that you're actually going to make a few contacts, and that helps everybody to know what to expect. Because as I said, right now Alameda County it's got a red box. That means on the endangered species list, and that's never happened before.
Well, I assume you don't mail your applications in.
It's not an application. It's just
you don't mail it in.
No.
You want it to get there.
We used to run from Modoc County. Modoc is the northeastmost county, and that used to be a red county. Now it's a medium green, so nobody it's not hard to get Modoc County anymore. But some of the other counties up in the fringes still need to be activated. If you have a cabin somewhere, go to your cabin and set up a portable operation and register it with CQP as an expedition. And I think you'll have a lot of fun doing it.
Well, the point is that if the pedantic virus thing is still going on, we aren't going to be able to do something as a club. It's going to have to be like you were doing for the field day.
That's right. It'll have to be an individual effort. That's another reason if you have a cabin, I think you're allowed to drive to your own cabin. So I ran as W6, I forget W6 what, from a cabin in Tuolumne County. Twain Hart, my friend N6 CEO, has a cabin there. I ran a single lot there. And so if that had been now, yeah, I have to drive to get there, but once I was there, I was in the cabin for 5 days and I didn't go anywhere. So I would say I'm keeping people happy.
Okay. Anything else?
I've got one other question for Rod. When did you start using logging software?
That's a good question. Back in 2000, when I started running CQP, we were running an old program called CT. I forget what CT stands for, contest something or other. And when N1MM came out, that changed everything because while it's a bit tricky to configure these software programs to, to get your baud rates right and everything else, once you get it configured, it changes the world because you can have your computer do the majority of the sending for you. On Morse code, if you have a interface to your CW key, you can have N1MM and WinTest send the code for you. In the case of single sideband, you can make WAV files and you can have the contest software play your WAV files when you press a particular button. And so I've been using contest software for about 25 years. The programs have gotten incredibly better, and I can't imagine running a contest without it. They're now having contest categories called classic, where you do things the classic way. And I'm waiting now for them to have a contest category called classic logging, meaning you get bonus points for not using a computer and writing it all down. But you still have to type it in after the contest and send them a Cabrillo file because they don't want to go through your handwriting. So that's my thoughts about that.
Anything else? Okay, thank you all for showing up this morning. You already know what next month's meeting is going to be. Thank you, Dennis. And what else is going on? So, Ron, you're shutting down your video?
Okay, I can do that, yeah. If I guess if I click on end, we all go away.
Ron, thanks a lot. You did a great presentation. Appreciate it.
I love doing this stuff. I'm in the Alameda Tongue Twisters Toastmasters Club, and while I've done speaking before, it's because of my 5.5 years in that club that I've learned how to make it a little bit better. The first PowerPoint presentation I ever did was horrible, so I've obviously learned a couple of things since then, and thank you for putting up with me.
Ron, I've got one other. Go ahead,
That
Charlie.
sounded like a pile up to me.
Thank you.
Charlie, go ahead.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn mine off, and I don't know if that does it to everybody else. Or
Ron,
Howard,
I've got one other request. You mentioned the earlier presentation you did at the ARCA meeting.
Yes.
Could you send me that presentation so I could get an idea of what?
Sure, it's on YouTube. I'll point you to the YouTube place where you can find it.
That's great. That's great.
Okay.
Bruce, but before we sign off, one other thing, you were going to inquire about trying to get another signature on the bank account.
I see, but everybody's sort of been part of that drill. I'm going to hold off, I guess, on that.
Okay.
I mean, everybody except for Dennis. Dennis, if you're wanting to be a co-signature to our checking account, you're very special position. It is Dennis? Yeah, Dennis.
Dennis, you have the mute on.
Oh, sorry.
There.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm not very a member of your club. I'm just a friend of Ron's, and he said to check this out. So that's kind of why I'm here.
Okay. Well, if you want to get involved, we've got a spot for you.
Okay, I'll think about that. Sounds good.
All right. Good. Everybody else was at the meeting. Oh no, I take it back. Richard, we have a
Yes.
position for you too. So give it a thought. Thank you, Charlie, for that.
By the
All right.
way, Dennis, I like the shirt. I don't think I've seen that one before.
It's one of the old ones. I got so many, I think you'll never see which ones I wear.
He likes to wear Hawaiian shirts.
Speaking of programs, Howard, we got to have a program of your new house. It
Excuse
should
me?
be 40 minutes of a tour, shouldn't it?
Oh, we could start. It's almost totally done. I mean, the outside is really what we're working on now, and even that's really. Sometime I'll give you a tour. It's not a problem.
Well, we're looking for a program for October.
You know what just occurs to me when you said the word tour, that because I've got a professional Zoom account, I could start turning the camera on while I operate certain contests and point it at the radio and let people see what it is I actually do.
That'd be very interesting.
Yeah, that would be.
Ron, tell me, do you have a separate account, or I mean, ARCA, has?
No, I actually bought my own year-long professional account so that I can work with some clients over the internet now.
Okay, I was going to say you certainly could use the clubs too.
I appreciate that, but yeah, no, I finally got smart. I think it was $150, well invested for me. I've already made my money back on it, so can't argue with that.
Good for you.
Right. Howard, I wanted to ask you, are you out of fire danger at this point?
Yes.
Yes, right now we are. I mean, the whole fire is going like mad up here, and the one I worry about is the Napa fire when we get to the Santa Ana, the wind's blowing in the west direction from Napa. That's the most threatening ones. The other ones that are over by Guerneville and that whole area along the Russian River that's in flames. It has to go through the whole town of Santa Rosa. Since we're on the east side of Santa Rosa, it's a long ways for it to get us. But the ones I worry about are the Napa fires that are, if the winds should change direction and head our way. Or if we have another thunderstorm, which is predicted coming week,
Tomorrow.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I think they said they had 10,000 lightning strikes in Northern California and 300 fires.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Would you guys do us a favor and point your smoke in another direction?
Yep.
Yeah,
Anyhow, I enjoyed attending this meeting. Unfortunately, I realized I had you have to use a swimming pool and do laps. You have to register and be in there at a certain time. So unfortunately, I had a 9 o'clock swim appointment, and so I missed the first part of the meeting. That's why I'll be glad to see the video and play it.
All right. Well, why don't we wrap this up? I guess I'm the one that has to stop the recording. So
Okay, well,
we're going to go ahead and
we
do
can
that.
bail out.
Okay. And I guess if I press the end button, you guys will all die. So I apologize for that, but okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Do I want to stop?